Hello, Internet, and thank you for joining me. These summer months are super brutal for us Midwestern folks. We're not meant for triple digits. Well, unless you're Superman. Boom! Segway, bitches. Now, see, this is actually going to be an interesting milestone for me, because I actually reviewed this teaser trailer back before the beginning of this year, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm too lazy to look it up, so I'm just assuming that. Anyway, this feels like a momentous occasion, so I'm gonna just go ahead and call this my 15 subscriber momentous occasion video. However, first of all, I just want to say I'm going to be structuring this thing like a podcast episode, so there's going to be no visuals in the background other than what I can scrape from YouTube. And also, I'm not going to be spoiling anything, but I do have a lot to say about the movie. I'm just not going to be spoiling it in this video, so if everybody likes it and I get to 15 likes on this video, then I will gladly make a full spoiler review where I bitch about everything. But anyway, I felt like I really needed to structure this like a review, so we're gonna make an attempt like that, just like the little engine that could wanted to get up that hill, and Pedro Pascal desperately wants to be a real boy. So, what did I think of Supergunn here? Well, in a vacuum, I loved it. That is to say, if there weren't a dozen articles and a bunch of nonsense clouding the marketing of this film, I'd enjoy it almost as much as I enjoy the promotional Dairy Queen Blizzard, which you can get right now at Dairy Queen. Hashtag not sponsored. And if you'll allow me, dear viewer, I want to get into these controversies, which I normally don't do, but I feel like everything everyone is talking about around this film is just ridiculous. So let me start with the point of controversy that I feel like I have the most stake in, and that is the Zack Snyder fans. See, they seemed determined to really hate this movie before it even came out. Which, hey, no shade from me, I do it too. But in this case, I thought that the trailer looked pretty good. But I kinda get it, I think. I like Zack Snyder. And when I say I like Zack Snyder, I mean to say that he has made many movies that I can watch over and over and over, and you get the idea. Sucker Punch is the best one. And now that I've praised Zack Snyder, let me also say that his take on the mainline DC characters makes me so mad I tend to black out. And by the time I come to, I have blood and fur in my mouth. I actually rewatched Man of Steel before I saw the James Gunn Superman, and I gotta say, it is just as bad as I remember. I cannot forgive Zack Snyder for killing Jonathan Kent like a bitch for no reason. But I did like Henry Cavill as Superman. I guess I can get this controversy from the understanding that Zack Snyder is some people's favorite director and he can do no wrong. But at the same time, as somebody who hated those DC movies, I just gotta say, I don't get why you wouldn't want James Gunn to take over. I mean, Zack Snyder is still a human. He is fallible. Why do we have to pretend like everything he does is amazing? I don't know. I'd go on this point, but honestly, we'd be here for hours, and I'd probably wind up with fewer pets. So let me move on to my second point of controversy that I have found to be absolutely ridiculous. And that is the Variety article about Gunn responding to something about Superman being a story about an immigrant, which after scratching my head for a bit and reading a few dozen things, I can confidently say that a lot of this is taken out of context. First of all, it seemed to be laid as bait by some film journalist that was interviewing Gunn at the time, and then later taken as gospel by people predisposed to screech about such things on the internet. The only real heads or tails I can make of it is that they are trying to do a fish out of water story, and they are translating that into an immigrant narrative. Whatever, I don't really care about the political side of this. After watching the movie, I can say with a definitive answer that yes, there is some political messaging in the movie. But it actually is the right kind of commentary for one of these things, in that it presents a stance on the issue and then presents the issue to you to then make your own opinion based on what you know and what you know about the characters within this universe. This movie, and by extension James Gunn, are presenting you with their opinion, but then presenting it as opinion and not as a lecture. It's not one of these movies that beats you over the head with its message and then tries to tell you you're an awful person if you disagree with them for any reason. So if you're a person that can't handle hearing another person's opinion, then I guess this movie isn't for you, and it's just woke. Fuck, I hate that word so goddamn much. Alright, I'm actually going to take that as a segue into my third point of controversy and the final one that I'm going to address in this video, and that is Superman being too weak, or that David Cornsweet projects a weak male stereotype on camera. Now, I think this point really comes down to the look of Superman that we have in this movie. And that is to say that David Cornsweet is not jacked like we have Henry Cavill, which, again, Henry Cavill might be one of the best people to play Superman ever, even if his movie sucked. I once again can actually say that this is a legitimate worry that I had before seeing the movie, that we were going to get a very subdued or a very weak Superman. And in a way, we kind of did, but not for the reason that I thought we would. See, the interesting thing is that Superman in this movie is actually very assertive with his beliefs. He's very assertive as a character, as a Clark Kent even. And that kind of disproves what I thought would happen with James Gunn, in that he wasn't really going to get Superman. He wasn't going to get that Clark Kent is actually a separate character from Superman, which there's a lot of similarities, but I don't think that we have enough for me to really complain about here. People were also really worried that Lois Lane was going to kind of take over and was going to browbeat a lot of Superman's scenes and overrule him and basically be this moral arbiter to him. And I can say with full confidence that I completely disagree with anybody that would leave with that take. The relationship between Superman and Lois and Clark and Lois is very different. It's very balanced. Sure, Lois does challenge him on his ideas. They are two separate people with two different ideas of how the world should work, and one of them happens to have godlike powers. So it's an interesting dynamic that they play off of very early on in the film, and I was super impressed at how well that this was handled. In fact, the actor that played Lois is phenomenal, I think, throughout the entire film. The entire cast does an amazing job while I'm on the subject, except for probably Lex Luthor and Jimmy Olsen, but I'll get to them here in a minute. Let me just wrap up this controversy section by saying it's not nearly as bad as anybody would let you believe, but it's also somewhat present. If you can't handle a difference of opinion while you're watching a movie, then maybe you can come back after you grow up. I don't know what to tell you. Alright, with that out of the way, let me talk about the actual fucking movie for a minute. And to that end, I think that this is the exact movie that we needed for a more general audience. Superhero fatigue has been a topic of conversation for the last few years, I think. And getting a movie where we can just sit down and watch a story unfold before us is something that we haven't seen in quite a while, because everything's always connected and stuff like that. But in this movie, I really feel like they have enough of the world on display without going overboard that you need to know all that much more about the wider DC universe. It's exciting because I feel like I can share my comic book characters with a more general audience in this way. It's a blockbuster that is just smart enough writing and acting wise to make it worth talking about for years to come, but still has enough crowd pleasing big action to keep a larger movie-going audience entertained. I think overall the movie could have been cut by about 15 or 20 minutes, and it would have been better for it. But I personally didn't mind it all that much. However, no one is here for me to praise a movie's greatest points, so let me jump on a couple of things that could have been better about this film. For starters, Lex Luthor as a character remains inconsistent. Sometimes he's a billionaire genius that's always 4 steps ahead of everyone, while at other times he's an immature child banging his toys together. Gunn needed to pick one of these things, but he couldn't, so we as the audience are left with yet another comic book villain that won't be remembered. And while I'm ragging on male characters here, let me bring up Jimmy Olsen. He's supposed to be this, like, hypersexual ladies' man who gets all the girls to fawn over him, which may or may not be comic accurate. I'm not 100% sure because I didn't read any comics where he was like that. But I'm sorry, bro, whatever your name is, actor that played Jimmy Olsen in this movie, but you do not exude the confidence that this movie insists that you have. You have all the sexual magnetism of a dude in a Subaru. Yeah, but outside of that, honestly, the only other thing I could really find to complain too much about is that there are just way too many goddamn characters. I said it and I meant it, that there could have been about 20 minutes less of this movie, and I think the biggest cuts could have been made to some of the Justice Gang, which they're fun in their own right. Like, Guy Gardner's obviously a blast because he's played by Nathan Fillion, and Mr. Terrific just steals the entire goddamn movie. He is the best. Unfortunately, we don't get enough time with any one of them to build any kind of a character arc. And so I felt like if we just cut one or both of them, we could have focused more on Lois and Clark. We could have focused more on establishing why any of the women in this movie would want to ride the short bus with Jimmy Olsen. And we could have even used an extra 5 minutes kind of establishing why Lex Luthor hates Superman as much as he fucking does. But at the end of the day, those are all just kind of nitpicky things that I feel like I need to say. But all in all, this movie is definitely worth your time, and I genuinely am interested in what James Gunn can give us down the line. And I personally just really liked this movie. So much so that I really want those 15 likes, not just so that I get more likes on my videos, so that I get to rewatch it and talk about it again. But for today, I think I'm going to leave it here. And of course, if you liked this video, show me by leaving a like. And if you want to subscribe to hear me yap about more movies, please go ahead and do that. I'm trying to monetize this channel desperately, and I need everything I can get. So your support means the world to me. Until next time, sayonara, bitches.